right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar titled Designing a Winning Farm Plan. My name is P. Wade Ross with Texas Small Farmers and Ranchers community-based organization. And before we jump into our first presenter here, a few quick housekeeping items, especially for those of you joining us for the first time. You have been automatically muted. Only today's presenters are on as well on camera. We do that for a few different reasons, just to make sure that we make their presentation go smoothly and uninterrupted. Please feel free to use the chat feature down below if you have any comments. Also, we'll be doing opening things up for questions as well as we go. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded and will be dispersed to everyone within the next week or so. So we do encourage you to re-listen, not only re-listen to this presentation, but also pass this recording along to others who could not make it tonight. Let me check on one thing real quick before I keep going here. Okay, just wanted to make sure I wasn't muted there. Let's see, so I'm gonna set the stage really for these knowledge forms that we give each month by sharing a little story about myself and my dad, who's actually the founder of our organization, Texas Small Farmers and Ranchers community-based organization, Wade Ross. As a small child, my dad always put me in positions where I had to, always rub elbows with guys who were more advanced than I was. It didn't matter if it was, someone in sports. It usually was me playing against guys 2, 3, sometimes even 4 years older than I was. And other, situations such as, education, he would always put me in the toughest classes. A lot of times I was, felt like I was the dumbest guy in the room, even though I was a pretty good student by most standards. And like most kids, I wanted to always be around other kids my age and my buddies and things like that. So one day I just went and asked him, I said, how come Dad, how come you're always putting me with these other kids? How come I can't, hang out? How come you not put me with the kids that I know? And his answer always has stuck with me. He says, son, become the best you can be. You can't always be the smartest and most skilled guy in the room. If you're going to be the top dog in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. You always want to try to be better. And the best way you can do that is stretching yourself. And it's with that mindset that we're really bringing these knowledge forms to you. It's really about elevating you as a producer, to try to stretch you and kind of take you out of some of those common patterns that have kept you being where you are in our farms, you and I, because we're in this together. So I just really wanted to share that with you. Moving forward, always expect to hear things that you've never heard before. That's okay, and expect to do things and be asked to do things that you've never done before, and that's really how we truly grow. And that's really what my dad was trying to get through to me, and it did finally stick. So, and that brings me to tonight's featured speakers who do come highly recommended. And really the best part for each of these speakers, for me personally, is that their passion, their passion on what they do each and every day, but not only that, but to help us as farmers and producers grow and become the best we can be. So first up, our next presenter here has graciously agreed to share some of his expertise on the topic of crops and vegetation. Justin Duncan is a sustainable ag specialist with the National Center of Appropriate Technologies. He has a BS in agronomy from Prairie View A&M University. And and also I was expecting somebody to say that saying you guys do, but I didn't hear it, but it's all good. And he's also got a master's in his plant breeding with Texas A&M. His work has focused on organic farming practices in the humid South, concentrating mainly on sweet potatoes, strawberries, niche market ethnic specialty crops, and he also does drought mitigation. He's currently working on cover crop project. I think he's actually located right now as we speak. He's probably sitting in a hotel room, and I think it was Corpus Christi somewhere. But he's really works hard to help farmers build their soil in organic manner. He's also working throughout the southern states to help with weed mitigation. So with that said, I am going to give the floor to Justin. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, y'all. Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about some different things that producers should consider. And I see a lot of questions out there on, what I should grow, or how come this isn't doing well for me, or why do I have so many pest problems, or I've got this disease in my soil. All these problems that folks have. And for me, it's very simple, because it relates back to the soil and what its capacity is. And so, like, all during school, especially at Prairie View, because my professors were mostly soil science professors, they harped on the soil. And I was like, I was young and dumb, so I didn't care about the soil. I only cared about the plants. And so now, that I'm older and maybe a little wiser, I understand how it's like soil is so, it sets your boundaries, it sets your parameters. What your soil is determines directly what your plants can do. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. If I can figure out how to make this thing work. All right. So what can your land handle? And that breaks down to several different limitations. What nutrients are present in your soil? That directly relates to your fertility. Then what is available? And surprisingly enough, this can relate to your hydrogen versus your hydroxide, your acidity versus your alkalinity. And then the last thing is, what rate and amount of nutrients can your plants uptake? And that's directly related to your water availability and water quality. So this is a mineral wheel. And for every mineral in the soil, and this is just a limited selection of the minerals. For every mineral in the soil, there is an antagonist and there are synergists. So this soil wheel is kind of, dumbed down because it's only got a few of the mineral elements. But think about the webbing that is created by these different minerals. This complexity is basically a living thing in your soil. If you've got too much of one, is it going to limit the accessibility that the plants have to the others? If you add too much of, NPK as what's sold in fertilizer, how does that affect this webbing in the mineral wheel? And it becomes a very important concern, because a lot of producers, especially the conventional producers, they just over apply nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus in the soil. And it's like, you know, you're going at the soil with a sledgehammer versus coming at it with a scalpel. You know, you have to look at how every little thing interacts with every other little thing. And most people don't do that. And since they don't, then they have all these random events, these effects in the plants that they don't want to have. And you know, it's because of a limited understanding of not only, you know, scientists, they don't understand this. So I break this mineral wheel and health plants, the limitations. Yeah, so what is your soil pH? And yes, I know the P is supposed to be lowercase, but for whatever reason, the presentation that I'm using it won't let me fix it. But soil pH can be defined as an indication of the acidity or alkalinity of a soil, and is measured in pH units. Soil pH is defined as a negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration. The scale goes from 0 to 14, 0 being as acidic as possible and 14 being alkaline as possible. And so this is a point of contention for me, because everyone says this wrong. Everyone says high pH when they really mean to say highly alkaline. High pH is 0 to, you know, 3 or 4. That's very high pH. And it's because of this negative logarithm. For every step in the scale, and the scale starts at 0, for every step in the scale, there is a 10 times drop in the amount of acidity. So low numbers, 0 to 3, 0 to 4, 0 to 5, those are high pH. So in order to avoid confusion, I just say highly acid or highly alkaline, because everyone says this wrong. So the pH is important because it determines naturally what can be grown in that soil. So in a very acidic soil, and very, very strongly acid are things like beer or vinegar or stomach acid. And this says soda on here. They mean like soda water, like canned cold drinks or whatever you want to call them. Those are examples of extremely acid things. If you notice, I've got some of these outlined or highlighted in green bars. The green is like the range where plants can grow. So anything outside of the green, like the extremely acid and the strongly alkaline, very strongly alkaline, those are pH levels that you're not going to see growth in the soil. But for the other things like moderately acid, like potatoes, which coincidentally grow in a very acidic soil, slightly acid like salmon and cow's milk, neutral is saliva or blood or shrimp, slightly alkaline, things like eggs, moderately alkaline, seawater, sodium bicarbonate, that sort of thing. That's just an example of the scale of, you know, where different things fall in the pH scale. So why does pH even matter? It matters in your soil because some minerals are locked up at very acidic pH, and that includes nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or NPK, the things that's found normally in fertilizer. So if your soil is too acidic, then certain things are not available to the plant, and you know it's very likely at the acidic levels that it takes to lock up nitrogen, that plant, you're not going to get good plant growth anyway. Some other minerals are locked up at highly alkaline pH. And this includes iron and manganese. So even if they're present in the soil, the plants can't uptake them because the pH is wrong for them to do so because it's locked up. Some minerals like copper, zinc, and boron are locked up at both extremes. So if it's too acidic, your plant can't get zinc or copper or boron. If it's too alkaline, within the range of plant growth. Because if you get very, very, very alkaline, boron becomes available again, and I'll show you that in a minute. But if it's very alkaline, very acidic, copper and zinc are locked up, and that's important because if you look at what copper does for you, copper's in your blood. Copper helps build hemoglobin. Copper helps move oxygen throughout your body. Zinc is important too, because zinc is one of the building blocks of your immune system. So think about that in relation to your livestock. If your soil is too acidic or too alkaline and you're trying to grow crops on them or fodder crops for your livestock, they're going to have mineral deficiencies because of the soil acidity or alkalinity. So pH matters, it's very important. All right, so this is a old school chart that shows you, what minerals are available at what pH. This was in all the soil science books. So you can see nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, and magnesium at a very high pH or a very acidic soil of 4. None of those things are available. Conversely, if you look on the other side at pH of 9, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, magnesium are very, very available. So again, pH, very important in relation to mineral uptake of the plant, because if there's too much of a mineral, too much acidity or too much alkalinity, you're not going to get nutrient uptake, and you're going to have poor crops. So there are methods to overcome pH issues in soil, and usually they're very expensive. You can apply a bunch of compost, and compost is about the best way to go, because compost is a natural buffer both for acidic soil and alkaline soil. So this relates directly to how important soil organic matter is in your soil, because your compost, if you mix it in with the soil, that's your soil organic matter. Naturally, in our Texas soils, usually our organic matter content is less than 2%. 2% is like great for many Texas soils. I've seen soil tests where it's been 0.5% of soil organic matter content. And if you have very little soil organic matter, you have very little buffering capacity of that organic matter. So if your soil is alkaline or acidic, the low amount of organic matter is not going to help you very much. And then organic matter is also very important in water content and water holding capacity. All right, so before a nutrient can even be absorbed by a plant, it must be made available. pH is one way it's made available. The other way it's available is it has to be dissolved into solution, because the way plant roots work is they have this thing called mass flow, where they suck up water through the roots like a straw. And so by this massive flow, they're pulling in all the water, and that's bringing minerals in with the water. Roots can also use some exchange. They can change a molecule that they've or a mineral that they have with a mineral that they don't have that's in the soil solution. That's a little bit different of a process, but still water needs to be present for either way to work. So water quality counts too. Don't use tap water for your plants. It's not good for them. Just, I can't make it any more simple than that. It's not good for your plants. It's not good for you either. So stay away from tap water. Avoid that stuff like the plague. It's awful because it's got chlorine in it. It's got chlorine in it or chloramine, and it's got fluoride in it. All bad stuff. And we could talk about that more. I could talk about that all night. I'm not going to, but just avoid tap water like it's death. It might as well have a Mr. Yuck sticker on it. Y'all remember Mr. Yuck? I'm old enough to where when I was in school, we had the Mr. Yuck stickers. In any case, plants have to have water to grow. Like us, most of their content is water. No water, no growth. Very simple. I've seen some grad student projects around the drought, and they were trying to basically do research about growing plants without water. And I'm like, if the plant is made from water, how are you going to get any sort of yield if you're trying to breed it to not need water? That was dumb. But it happened. Anyway, lastly, water quality affects uptake of minerals and proportions of those minerals, because we just talked about, all the different minerals in the mineral wheel and how the different minerals affect uptake of others. The acidity affects, the uptake, or the alkalinity and all that. So if you've got poor water quality, if your water is contaminated with a bunch of stuff, let's say you've got well water and your well water is full of iron and manganese. Well, if you're putting that water that's full of iron and manganese out on your soil, then it's going to make your soil very acidic, which is going to cause nutrient uptake issues for the other minerals. All right, so what does all this crazy stuff that Justin's talking about mean for me as a prospective vegetable grower? I have one very simple rule of thumb. It is to grow what grows. I mean, I try to break it down as much as possible, make it easy for everybody. Grow what grows. And I've gone out to farmers' fields, and they're trying to grow all this extravagant stuff. And I say extravagant, I don't mean like these, just niche market specialty crops, nothing like that. I mean extravagant as in it is not suitable for the particular soil they are on. And they're struggling. And they're like, the books say this, and, the extension people say this, and everyone, wants me to use all these products, and they're suggesting all these products for me, and this stuff isn't working for me, or it's very expensive for it to work for me because I have to use all these extra products. But nature told you when you walked out there and looked around the field, what is suitable to grow. If I walk out on your property and I'm looking around, and I'm seeing blackberries everywhere, the little wild ones, or dewberries, or whatever you want to call them, Rubus trivialis. If I'm seeing this growing on your property and you're not growing that, you're growing some vegetable that there are no relatives of that vegetable in your field, I'm going to tap you on your shoulders and be like, hey, why aren't you growing blackberries? Because that is what your land is telling you to grow. That is the easiest thing for you to grow if it's growing out there naturally. If you've got mulberries out there, you know what's related to mulberries? Figs. Figs and mulberries are very closely related. If you've got mulberries naturally growing, then you should have no problem growing all the figs you want. So, there's a list of plant families I've got. And if you want, you can email me and I can send you the list. but it breaks down, and I made that list for one of my other classes called Herbs for Health. And that class, which I'm kind of teaching tomorrow down here in Corpus Christi, it teaches you about like, the different chronic illnesses that Americans have, and what research shows that what plants or herbs or vegetables or whatever fixes those things. So I told people in that class that, you need at least, 12 to 20 different plant families a day to be healthy. And everyone was like, Justin, that's impossible. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's easy. And so I made a list of all the edible plant families and all the vegetables, fruits, and herbs that fall within those plant families. So if you go out on your property and you see a member of any of those families growing, you can look at the list and know that, okay, since that grows here, this should be able to grow here. And, sometimes there needs to be a little bit of modification. I mean, you might need to keep the wind off of them or protect them during the winter or whatever little thing. But generally, if something in the family grows there, like the wild lettuce or sunflowers, if those things grow there, then the composites or the Asteraceae, they can grow there. It's usually a very easy correlation. So you can look at the list and it'll kind of guide you on what plants to grow. All right, so some of the acid-loving crops, and somebody already asked this in the chat. You've got a lot more acid-loving crops than you do alkaline-loving crops. And I guess I can go through the list, but there's radishes, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, blueberries, peppers, eggplants, pumpkins, beans, squash, tomatoes, corn, turnips, parsley, asparagus, horseradish, and celery. And there are some caveats to what I was saying earlier about the different plant families. So with peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes, they're all in the same plant family. They're all Solanaceae. But if I go out on your property and I see, silverleaf nightshade or Solanum elaeagnifolium, if I see that growing, then I know you can grow eggplants. Even though those are in the same family as tomatoes and peppers, but if you've got this one, you could grow eggplants better than the other two. If I go out there and I see the ground cherries or husk cherries or tomatillos, I know that you can grow tomatoes, then you can probably grow the eggplant surface. So, a little bit more specific. It's a little bit more narrowed down than the general rule. And then, of course, if I see chiltepine or chili piquin growing out there wild, then you can grow peppers very easily because those are just wild peppers here in Texas. Alkaline loving crops, I didn't find a very good list on these, but I know from experience that okra does better in some of the alkaline soils. I've grown it in peat-based mixes, but whenever I try to grow it at Prairie View in the research plots, it never got taller than a foot in the field. But if I grew it in raised beds, this stuff got like 6, 7, 8 feet tall. Lavender, it's kind of, that's why we've got, the lavender farms out in Central and East Texas. Those are alkaline soils. Then fennel and spinach. So very much shorter list than the acid-loving crops, and that's because where people domesticated the different crops and all that. All right, so all this stuff boils down to, is my plant going to be healthy? And in plant pathology, we have the disease triangle. And the disease triangle is a very handy tool that just lets you know that in order for disease, or to me, even if an insect infestation, in order to have a disease or insect infestation or pest infestation, you have to have 3 things. First, you have to have a susceptible host, and that's your plant. Then you have to have a pathogen or pest that's virulent on that host, something that can live out its life cycle on that host. Third, and most important, is the environment. You have to have an environment that is conducive to that disease or that pest infestation for it to be present. If you don't have all three of those, then you don't have disease or pest outbreak. And the easiest thing for us to be able to control, besides choosing the plants, is choosing the environment in which those plants grow. It's a very important concept, simple concept, but people tend to get it wrong because we have this mentality where we decide that we're going to grow this thing, and this thing is what we're going to concentrate on. But first of all, the land didn't say to grow that. And then second, the plant is unhappy there. And unhappy plants are stressed, and they put out chemicals to the environment that say, hey, I'm suffering, come kill me. They're called allelochemicals or semiochemicals. They're signaling chemicals. So they emit to nature when they are stressed out. And the stress could be anything. The stress could be temperature. The stress could be water. The stress could be some mineral they're missing. It doesn't matter. Once a plant becomes stressed, it's telling the environment to come destroy it. That's what the insects are looking for. They're flying around with their little antennae waving around, and once they get that signal from the plant, they zero in on it, and then they can breed there, and they're happy. Some pests zero in on the color yellow, because that is a color indication that your crop is stressed. Didn't matter how it became yellow, but now it's yellow, and now it's covered in cucumber beetles. So remember the disease triangle. If your plant is exhibiting any symptoms of disease or pest outbreak, figure out why. It's not the pest or disease is not the problem. It's a symptom of the problem. So this is a picture from one of our fields down in South Texas. If y'all notice, the soil is cracked, it's dry, and you'll also notice that this broccoli crop is about 4 weeks delayed in development because of this droughty soil. So another good rule of thumb is to keep your soil covered. Don't expose your soil to radiation. The radiation source is the sun. All that solar radiation is coming down and it's cooking your soil. It's making your soil like this, and it shouldn't be that way, because the plants need to extend their roots as far through the soil as they can. And once they get to a crack in the soil, the root growth stops. So what can you do? You can modify your root zone, and you do that by keeping it shaded. If you look on the right side of the picture, the graphic, it has shaded, and then there's varying degrees of debris buildup. That debris buildup is shading the soil, and it can only build up if it's shaded too. So a good example of this is one of my favorite cover crops is pigeon peas. When pigeon peas form a canopy over a field and there's any drought, they start dropping their leaves. So the canopy of the pigeon peas is the first layer of protection of against solar radiation to your soil. Then if you walk out under the canopy of the pigeon peas, there's a noticeable difference. There's a temperature drop of 10 to 15 degrees, because now all the solar radiation is being absorbed by the leaves. So the debris underneath, or the leaf matter underneath, has a chance to build up. And because it has a chance to build up, your soil can now hold a little bit more moisture. So since there's a little bit more moisture, then the fungus can live and grow throughout the leaves and break them down and build your organic matter or your humus. On the other hand, if your soil is exposed, there's less ability for the soil to hold moisture. There's less fungal hypha. There's less organic matter, and the ambient temperature is higher. So keep your soil covered. Figure out how. I mean, you could use a living mulch like clover, like we attempted in this picture, or you could use actual mulch. Anytime you open up the soil to the sun, it's burning off your nutrients. It's burning off all the stuff that you want to keep in your soil. Not only the organic matter, but the thing that feeds on the organic matter, which is your soil biota or your microorganisms. If those things aren't there, your plant has even more limitation on what minerals it can absorb, because the soil microbes are what breaks down the mineral content in the soil so that the plants can use it. So keep your soil covered, figure out a way, either by plant canopy or mulching. So I kind of touched on, growing what grows. Look at your property. Figure out what's growing there already. What would grow there if there were never any humans present? So like on my family's land, we've got yaupon, and yaupon is an invasive bush, but it's also the only North American source of caffeine. So we have producers here in Texas that figured out, hey, I can sell yaupon tea, because nothing else was growing. Everything else was dead because of drought, and they figured out that they had a sellable product on their farm. You've got one too. No matter where you're from, you've got something natural that grows there that somebody somewhere wants. And so you just have to figure out how to get what they want to them from your property. Sassafras, that grows out there. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with it, but it is a fantastic smelling wood. Everything on the plant smells great. And my great grandmother said that if you get sick, and she said specifically for diabetes, but other people use it for other things too. There's two roots on it. There's a white root and a red root. And she said to use the red root and it'll help cure you. If you use the white root, it'll bring whatever sickness you've already got up. So like if you've got, exposed to a cold virus and you use that white root, it's going to make you get that cold. Basically, that's how she explained it. And Big Mama lived to be 103. So whatever she said is pretty much gold for me. We've also got calicarp, or beautyberry, growing out there. We've got perilla. Perilla is the plant that got me in grad school because no one could figure it out. And I took it to everyone. And then finally I had a friend that was enrolled at Texas A&M. She was like, come bring it over here. And I'm a Prairie View grad. I don't mess with Texas A&M. So reluctantly, I went up to College Station, and we talked to some different people. And I ran into a really great lady named Dr. Mary Ketcherson. And we talked, for about an hour. We just had a really great conversation, about plants, because she's a crazy plant scientist like I am. And we just had the greatest conversation. And she asked me, she was like, well, where did you get your PhD? I'm like, I don't have that. So she was like, well, where'd you get your master's? I'm like, I don't have that either. And so she was like, please tell me you have a bachelor's. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got that from Prairie View. And so she was like, oh, my boss is from Prairie View. And so she took me over to Dr. Ritchie, and Dr. Ritchie, he kind of, knocked me over my head and made me go to Texas A&M for grad school. But in any case, perilla is a great thing. It is an anti-allergy herb, and it got unleashed in Texas because of Japanese internment. So, they put the Japanese in internment camps, and Perilla was one of their plants. And wherever they were, that plant escaped, and now it's all over East Texas. We've also got black locust, we've got oaks, and we've got pine. All of these things are very useful. And, some of them are herbal. It can be made into herbal supplements or herbal concoctions. Like pine, I make Zerben schnapps. Zerben schnapps is what they use in Germany. If you get a cold or, a fever, your Oma, she's got her medicine, and Zerben schnapps is one of those medicines that Oma would have. And you take a shot of schnapps and you wake up feeling fine in the morning. It's pretty great stuff. Some of these things are useful as landscaping plants, like the calicarpa, like the yaupon. Some are animal fodder, like the black locust. If you could grow black locust, you could grow honey locust. If you can grow honey locust, you can get a very high carbohydrate source for your cattle. And then, of course, the wood. And don't just, go out and sell a bunch of logs to random folks that are going to pay you bottom dollar. That wood is valuable. If you got tools, if you got some know-how, you can change that wood into useful products. Sell the useful products rather than selling the wood itself, because value added is the way to go. If you any step that you add beyond just harvesting, build that value into it. Figure out how to use these things. I met one producer. He had supplejack growing out on this property. You know what supplejack is? It's a Native American herbal Viagra. It's a product. You just have to figure out how to get what your land is growing naturally to the people who need it. And one way to do that is using Etsy, using your Facebook groups, word of mouth. I make a salve out of an herb that I found in the desert. The stuff is, I don't like to toot my own horn, but this stuff is magic. Like when people put it on like a mosquito bite, that sting, that itch, that burn immediately disappears. I love this stuff. So whenever, I talk to people and they ask me what I do and tell them whatever, and people will chime in and be like, he's got this stuff. And I've made sales, just by word of mouth, people telling folks that he's got this magic stuff. I sold some this weekend at a party I was at. It's just, I don't know. You have to be able to market whatever you've got, build some added value to it. But don't just go out on your property and kill all the weeds because you don't understand that they're useful plants growing in their particular spot where they want to grow. All right, that's all I got. So if y'all want to ask questions, all right, so Tina Henderson asked about examples of vegetables. I kind of gave that list. Garcia is saying, I have to use tap most of the time. Please filter that if you can. What's Justin's email to get the list? I'll post that in the chat.
Yeah, and if you can post it, great. Otherwise, I was gonna send it out to everybody at the end once we get them the link to the recording. So either way, that's perfect.
All right, let's see. Darcia is talking about nightshades. Yes, those are nightshades are a boon and a bane. They're good because they've got things in them like lycopene and capsaicin, which are very, very good phytochemicals for us, but they've also got lectins, and the lectins can be responsible for inflammation in humans too. So nightshades, you have to be careful with them. You have to know what you can tolerate. LeVar Blue Rock wants a list. Email me. Thanks, Gabrielle. Appreciate that. Thanks, LeVar. Thanks, Nori.
It looks like you got
Mama Lynn,
something in the
Mama Lynn,
Q&A.
Mama Lynn emailed me. Q&A. Candy, thoughts on mesquite and yucca? Okay, so yucca is pretty exciting because that's one of the supplements I take. A while back, I had got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I can tell y'all that at another venue. But I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and yucca was one of the things that I started taking as a supplement. And one thing that we don't hear enough about in any sort of health discussions, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pharmacist, I can't cure, treat, or diagnose any disease. I can only tell you my own experiences. And from my own experiences, what I have seen is that we don't get enough saponins in our diet, and yucca provides those saponins. One of the uses for yucca, the yucca roots, is people make it into shampoo because it has this nice sudsy characteristic. So you can use it as shampoo. But I was using it as a supplement because for whatever reason, it was helping my joint pain when I was hurting. I've since got over the rheumatoid arthritis, even though that doctor lady said that that she respected my decision on using natural supplements, but I was going to be back in her office in 2 weeks begging for pain medicine. That never happened. That's been years. Gabrielle says, how can we connect with you on more of your lectures and work? Is there a way we can attend more of your classes? Hit me up on Facebook, JC Duncan, and yeah, you can connect with me there, and I post most of my daily doings on that site. Like today, I'm here in Corpus Christi getting ready to give a class on foraging. So we're gonna go out at the park and walk around and look at plants that that we can eat, and they're good for us. All right, so if that's it for the questions, I'm passing on to Felicia Bell because she's a genius, and Felicia, get with me later because I got a sheet that I need help with.
Oh man, we appreciate you, Justin. Man, that part about grow what grows, priceless, man. There's so many nuggets in there. You gave a full seminar. We're going to circle back to you and do some more of this if you don't mind. And if you could stick around, what we'll do, we're going to bring Felicia on here. I'm going to introduce her, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And there may be some more questions for you. And I'm glad you got a chance to answer that water question because I know that's a key question coming up. But go ahead, let's keep things rolling because I don't want to keep folks here too late. So we're going to bring on Felicia Bell, who's worked at sustainable agricultural as a sustainable agricultural specialist at NCAT in the Gulf State region since 2013, I think it is. So Felicia is a 4th generation farmer and a founding member of her own farm, RD&S Farm LLC. And she has been fascinated by the traditional African farming methods and techniques. A lot of what it sounds like Justin just shared as well. She was born into agriculture and holds a deep-rooted value system in serving others just like us on this Zoom call. Through many years of experience, she's learned resourceful and inexpensive methods and solutions to help lessen the cost burden. And I know for some of us on here, that means that we're in the right place here. And at the same time, she helps develop viable farm enterprises. And Felicia's educational background, she's got a BS in biology through Jackson State University. She's also has some additional studies in grazing land management out of University of Georgia. And she's got a certificate in hospitality and tourism management from Florida Atlantic University. So I know in doing some of our surveys in the past, a lot of us out here are looking into the agritourism. So not sure, Felicia, but maybe you guys, she could be a great contact and for some insight on that, just based on her background. Felicia is a current board member of Mississippi Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association. Also, she's a board member at Rainbow Natural Grocery Cooperative and a board member and treasurer for Mississippi Food Policy Council. Some of her specific areas of expertise are in food service, raising land management, raising heritage breed animals, and herbal remedies for livestock. So Felicia, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And Justin, look, we together, we geniuses together. That's why you and I are friends, and we've been doing this for a very long time because we love what we do and we definitely love people. So we want to share as much as we know. But I appreciate both of you all and this opportunity to share. All right, can you see my screen at this time? Great, thank you. So I was asked to talk about farm business, and I always say farm business 101 because we're going to be just skimming the surface. We definitely can get in depth with other meetings and so forth, but I wanted to just share with you all what it takes to start a farm business. What are the legal things that you need to do to start a farm business? And I know each and individual farmer will have different aspects that they need to talk about, and that's where that will be possibly a later meeting or an in-person meeting. So 8 steps to starting your business. One, the first and foremost is your niche product. So most farmers always want to do what everybody else is doing, but that don't help you too much because now you're competing with a friend, you're competing with the farmer 40 miles away that you don't know, but he's driving to your market. So you need to find a product that's conducive for yourself. So you just heard Justin say that he makes herbal products, but he knows the products. He knows what they do. That becomes a niche because majority of the people that do products, they're just selling products. They don't know how they work. They don't utilize them. They don't, the functionality of them. So don't just say, I want to sell collard greens in the fall just because that is what you think you're supposed to sell. If your soil, like Justin said, if your soil, because we have microclimates, so if your soil is able to grow a crop in the fall that no one else can do, some type of green, something that can be brought to your county, that's what you need to grow. That's your niche market. So that is the first and foremost is figuring out what is the best thing your land can grow, not necessarily what you want to grow, because the next word here is market research. That's talking about who's going to buy from you. So a lot of times we go in business and we want to create what we want, but if nobody buys it, how is it being profitable and conducive for our farm operation? So market research is just only thing that is just talking about the people. And we're going to get into that later on in other slides. Write a business plan. You got to fund your business. Of course, you got to choose a business structure, register your business, get federal and state tax IDs, apply for license and permits, and then open a business bank account. Again, that's the top things you have to do. There's many more, but we'll start with these. So that niche product and market research, I had kind of started with that. Learning to do market research is that step you really can't skip, and most people skip it. They hear the word market research and they think, do that. That's not my expertise. But if you're a business owner, it is your expertise. You have to do this. So because while it certainly helps you know what you want to grow, you're still going to need to know who is going to buy your products, where you're going to sell them, and how you're going to do this, all while taking competitors into consideration if someone else in your county is doing that particular product. Even if you know nothing about formal market research practices, you can do your own research. How to learn about your customers and distribution channels. That's easy. So that's why I always say market research is a word, a terminology that people say, but everybody can do it. If you are already interested in a particular product, learn more about your local market. Can you sell that product there? Check out farmers markets, meet other local producers, speak to customers as you shop, and then better yet, survey farmers markets to see if any crops or products are underrepresented. That's what I've seen most farmers do, and they come out winning because they just walk through the farmers market. Now, writing a business plan, two types of business plans, and this is coming from my perspective now. A lean canvas model, and I call that the internal use only, utilizing it internally within your business. And then you have the corporate business plan, external use with your banks, your credit unions and creditors, and building lines of credit. Those are the two. Now, the lean canvas model, lean canvas is a one-page business plan template that helps you deconstruct your idea into its key assumptions. And then it replaces elaborate business plans with a single page business model. Now, the four things that it has for us is fast, it's concise, it's and it's effective. That's why I like the canvas model. And then I will share it with you. We'll go over that at the end of the presentation. I can bring that up, show you how it look, and then definitely send it on to Mr. Ross where he can distribute it out to everyone. But I want to go over it first. That's why I didn't send it in advance, because sometimes people look at it and think it's hard. It is really, really not hard to do. But we need a business plan. We just need to decide on what type of business plan we need. The second thing is funding your business. So of course, most of us, when we start a business, regardless if it's a farm business or not, you're using your personal funds. So it's either money that you inherited, you start a business. I know during the pandemic, a lot of people utilize those the government checks that were coming to people. A lot of young people started businesses with those checks, which I'm ecstatic because they didn't utilize it on things that are not fruitful and not assets for them, or that definitely can become an asset. Then, of course, inheritance like land, tools, that is still value in your business. And so don't think that those things are not valuable because you didn't pay for them. Of course, lines of credit, Lowe's, Home Depot, your local cooperative where, pick up feed and so forth. Those are lines of credit in your local area. You can do that, and then getting credit cards from like Lowe's and Home Depot for your business, not consumer credit, business credit. Then you have cash value from life insurance. I'm a big proponent of that, and definitely you can ask questions at a later time, or I have a video of the author, Mary Jo Ehrman, on farming without the bank. That is a book that you can purchase to read about that, to learn more about how to utilize your cash value from your life insurance to fund your business. Of course, FSA loans, and then business grants. And I always kind of say established businesses only, because business grants can be gotten by farmers and farm entities, but it's not at the beginning. A lot of new and beginning farmers want grants to start their farm. That's not a norm. That's not a norm. And so you have to be an established business before you can start writing proposals to get grant funding. It is possible. I have done that for my business. Think about it. And also you need to talk over it with your family. Whoever is involved now and who will be involved in the future with your business needs to be on the decision making of how you're going to structure this business. So the business structure you choose influences everything from day-to-day operations to taxes and how much your personal assets are at risk. So you should choose a business structure that gives you the right balance of legal protections and benefits. So the list of business structures, you have sole proprietorship. You're automatically considered to be a sole proprietorship if you do business activities, but don't register as any other kind of business. So that's what you are. Partnership is limited partnerships, have only one general partner, one unlimited liability, and then all your other partners have limited things you cannot do. Because they say they're a little bit more difficult, don't mean you cannot do them. And the last is the cooperative business structure. Most of us are familiar with farmer cooperatives, but a lot of times the farmers that are members of farmer cooperatives do not know their rights within that cooperative. They don't know the business structure and what they're supposed to be able to do and not do. So I definitely wanted to share that with you all tonight. So a cooperative is a business or organization owned by and operated for the benefit of those using its services. So profits and earnings generated by the cooperative are distributed among the members, also known as user owners. Typically, an elected board of directors and officers run the cooperative, while regular members have voting power to control the direction of the cooperative. Members can become part of the cooperative by purchasing shares, though the amount of shares they hold does not affect the weight of their vote. What that means is you can have 100 shares, but you only have one vote. You don't have 100 votes. You know, you're not put down that many times. You can own as many shares as you want to because you're paying for those shares, meaning you have more ownership than possibly your neighbor in the cooperative. But that doesn't change. Each cooperative member has only one vote. The other I wanted to state, in most farmer cooperatives that I have been a part of and then now assist with, it is a elected board of directors, it is officers, but it's this one person that's running everything. And that is not a cooperative, that's a dictatorship. So we have to make sure that members understand their rights, their legal rights when it comes to being cooperative members. And a lot of times that's not shared at the beginning. Now, registering your business. Registering your business to make it a distinct legal entity. How and where you need to register depends on your business structure and your business location. Meaning if it's commercial, if it's residential, if it's farming, agriculture. It's so many different variables when it comes to your county or if you're in city limits. Most businesses don't need to register with the federal government to become a legal entity, other than simply filing to get a federal tax ID number. So small businesses sometimes register with the federal government for trademark protection or tax exempt status. Now, if your business is a limited liability corporation, partnership, or nonprofit corporation, you probably need to register with any state where you conduct business activities. Now, most states require you to register with the Secretary of State's office, a business bureau, or a business agency. So it is best to do that. That makes you a legal entity, as it says at the top, a distinct legal entity to work in that state to do business. Now, getting your federal or state tax ID numbers, your state tax ID and federal tax ID numbers, also known as an employer identification number, or most of us here EIN number, works like a personal social security number, but for your business. They let your small businesses pay state and federal taxes. Your EIN is your federal tax ID. You need it to pay federal taxes, hire employees, open a bank account, and then apply for business licenses and permits. Also, the need for a state tax ID number ties directly to whether your business must pay state taxes, depending on what your business do. The other thing that I want to add, some of you may have heard of DUNS number, all caps, DUNS. DUNS number is like the credit bureau for businesses. And so that's another number that you possibly would want, definitely if you're doing state, federal contracts, even local wholesale contracts, because it makes your credit, your business credit grow faster. And what I mean by that, if you go to businesses and do business, they can go and submit that you paid your bill. And that, just as with consumer credit, you can get that same with commercial credit, business credit. The only difference is business credit can be established quicker than consumer credit. Last, and then here, not last, I'm sorry, but here, you need to apply for licenses and permits based upon what you're doing. So most small businesses need a combination of licenses and permits from both federal and state agencies. So the requirements and fees, they vary based on your business activities, location, and government rules. And so I put here the federal, this is federal only, because your state, it's a lot. You really have to dig in and do the research on see what you need. But on the federal side, in agriculture, if you import or transport animals, animal products, biologics, biotechnology, or plants across state line, then you need those different permits and license. And I can vouch for that. We used to move animals, well, we still do, move animals and transport animals and stuff for farmers. Then when my son was showing animals, we couldn't cross state lines. We have to have our veterinarian health permit. So it's all of these types of things you have to learn to be legal, because yes, they will stop you. That is what DOT and is for. It's not just for the big trucks and so forth. So you definitely want to make sure that you have these various licenses when you're transporting. That's the biggest thing this is saying, and so forth. But it is other licenses, like Mr. Ross mentioned, in food service, and that is for my middle son. We had a cafe, 20 now open for him. He does vegan donuts. So of course we had to have a health permit. And we have a concession trailer. So we have to have health permits and other things for that concession trailer and so forth. So that's what I mean by depending on what businesses you are in or what type of operation you're doing under the umbrella of your business, that would determine what license and permits you need. Now, opening a business account, this is crucial. You do not whatsoever commingle your money. If you all don't hear anything else I say, please, please, please do not start that habit. Because when you get a grant or any type of funding, it can be grant or loan, you cannot commingle that money. You'll get in a world of trouble because you will not remember where stuff went. So you need to be separate account where you have an actual bank account, that a bank statement rather, that can show you where it went and what came in. But now if you commingle with your personal account, is no way you know what went where and who and why. And so please, please do not start that habit, because when you do go after a grant, you're going to get in trouble. We had one of our big powerhouses in the world of agriculture, Mr. Will Allen in Milwaukee. He did that, and he is no longer. And Mr. Will was with Growing Power. You all can look that up, because Growing Power got YouTube videos from back in the day. Mr. Will was the guru of aquaponics and just teaching people how to grow in small spaces. But he commingled grant money. And you cannot do, I don't care if you have 20 grants, you have to have 20 bank accounts. And that's what people don't want to do. They don't want to do the work, but you got to do the work if you're going to ask for the money. So open a business account when you're ready to start accepting or spending money as your business. A business bank account helps you stay legally compliant and protected. It also provides benefits to your customers and employees. So your EIN or Social Security number, if you're a sole proprietor, your business's formation documents, ownership agreements, and business license is what you would need to open a business account. So these are the references that I utilize to get this information. Always the Small Business Administration, I put association, but administration, I apologize for that typo. But the Small Business Administration, always your place to go to get this information. That is where I got all of this information, because it is the key. This is what you have to live by if you're going to be a business in America. This is what you have to do. You can run a business, but to be a legitimate business, to be able to get grants, to be able to get loans, to be able to write proposals and so forth, and get contractual agreements on the state and federal level with government entities and other nonprofits, larger nonprofits and foundations. You got to be a legitimate business. They're not going to work with somebody to just say they're in business. The other thing that I utilized was bplans, bplans.com. It was an article there talking about how to start a farm and how to start farming. So those were my references. And then last, I want to get a contact information before I go to the lean canvas model template to be able to show you all that. But this is our information, and you're welcome to contact us anytime for information. This is what I eat, sleep, breathe every day. I love helping farmers. And when Mr. Ross read the bio saying I was born into agriculture, it is true. It's what I love to do. But where I differ in most instances is I'm trying to help our farmers understand they do not have to be a chemical-based farm to make money. I grew up with that with my grandfather, and he did row cropping, over 200 acres without chemicals. Then I come along, and well, it was much more than 200. That was just one swath of land. Then I come along and we did livestock. I do livestock without chemicals, or antibiotics and all of that stuff, because this is that's man-made and that's recent. That all of that stuff is recent and so forth. But we're talking about what Justin and I always talk about. We're talking about hundreds of years, thousands of years of medicinal things that grow here, that we can utilize to heal ourselves, heal our animals, and so forth. And so that's what I am here to help people understand. So that is my contact information, our website at the bottom at bit.ly/RDS farm. So let me stop sharing, and then let me bring up this particular form. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. Alrighty. All right. Let me get here. All right, now let me share screen. All right. Is everyone able to see that?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so the lean canvas model is something that, like I said, I've been working with for a while. Have shared it with my children. They all have businesses, so I start them this way because this is internal use. This is just putting your ideas on paper, out of your head. You got to get things out of your head, and when you write things down, you tend to go on to implement it. As long as it stay in your head, most of the time you don't push through and go on and do it. So first and foremost, you see how the numbers are not consecutive. They're all over the place. That's a reason for that. One, it helps you think through what you're doing. It helps you focus and concentrate on what you're doing. So number one is your customer segment. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Right. So your customer segment is listing your target customers and users. So remember when I said market research, you got to target market. You can't, most business owners want to say, oh, I'm targeting everybody. Can't do that. That's just not possible. You got to hone it in. Who are you targeting? For an example, with my son business with the vegan donuts, his target market was people that are on the path of health and wellness. That was one of his targets. So people that are conscientious of their health. That is basically who he sells to and so forth. But you got to hone it in, target it in on who is going to buy your product. It cannot be this broad stroke and just say everybody. That's just not possible. So that's number one. List your target customers and users, and then your early adopters. So that is listing the characteristics of your ideal customer. Meaning, for example, I stayed with the vegan donuts. The health and wellness person, the one that's conscientious of their health, the runners, the gym guys, they going out, the personal trainers, those are the one I'm trying to think of. You got to think about those people. That's your ideal customer and early adopter. They don't have to think about it. All they see when he comes up is vegan. When they see that, they know exactly, and they gonna come and ask. That all of us that are health conscious going to ask you, because we want to make sure you're doing and saying what you're putting up there. So they immediately ask him what's in the donut. To make it vegan is no butter, no dairy, and so you don't have your butter and milk and all that kind of stuff, and no eggs. So they come and ask him right off the bat, what are you putting in this donut? And so, but that's his early adopters. They're coming right in there just because it says vegan. Number two is your problem. List the top 1 to 3 problems that you as a business is solving. That is what that means. You're solving a problem in your community. So you list those problems, and we know them. We live in our community. We know what's going on in our community. No one has to tell us that. That's number two. Now, your existing alternatives is listing how these problems are solved today. So you're putting the problem up here at the top. The existing alternative is how your business can solve them today. What do you have in place today that can start moving the needle with the problem? That's number two. Now, moving to number three with your unique value proposition, that's a single, clear, compelling message that turns an unaware visitor into an interested prospect. What I call the unique value proposition is your niche. What's going to pull the string? What's going to get them to come to your table? We always did direct marketing, so it's a lot of other vendors out here, but what's going to make that customer walk up to you? And that's a niche market. So you're creating some type of value that's going to bring them in and so forth. Before my son, for me, I play our farm video. I have a farm slideshow, and I play that slideshow. That catches people's eye because they'll see my ram, they'll see all these different animals, and they are close, and they see these different things we have going on at the farm that brings them to the table. And then I can hook them with the information to start saying, okay, we offer this. Other things that I have done, even though I've had herbal tinctures on the table, herbal teas, pain rubs, all these different herbal products. But then I also have as decoration farm-like things. So I have crates, the old wooden crates and different things like that on my table. I have our wool, because I got our wool milled and so forth. So I sell the wool. It's on the table as a product, but it's there as it looks like decoration. Like I'm trying to use it as, and that pulls people because they like, is that, because they'll see the ram, they'll see my sheep in the slideshow, and then they'll walk up like, is that your wool? That's my unique value proposition. High level concept. List your X for Y analogy. So like your YouTube equals like a Flickr for videos. And so what do you do to capture people? I'm not big on social media. I don't do that. I'm old school when it comes to word of mouth. The product sells itself. So when I sell the product, I get the return business. So that's kind of how I run my business. It's not my son's, but my business, that's the way I run it. Number 4 is outline a possible solution for each problem. So you literally are writing an outline for those problems. So you utilizing that 1 to 3 problems, and number 2, you're listing them, and then out to the side, you're putting the solutions that your business can solve. That's number 4. Then 5 is channels. List your path to customers. So again, your channel may be social media. You may be using everything under the sun when it comes to social media, everything online. I have many, many friends that do that. Everything they do with their business is online. So you have to list those different platforms that you are using and what are you getting from them. So you got to work the metrics of those channels to make sure you're getting business from those channels. It's not about just posting and thinking you're going to get business. Is it really creating a dollar when you post that particular item? That's what your channels. For most of us that are not online, you're actually going to list. So I already said I'm direct marketing. So I do around the country. I'm far as North Carolina, on the east, I've gone west side, far as Arkansas, a little further. I've gone further north than that, of course, all the way down. And so you got to know where you're going to go. Where would you travel to then? I go in then, but it's not me. I take my business and I pull the other boys in, because everything that we do is under agriculture. Their businesses is under within the agriculture industry. So because Mama's about to retire and pass the baton. So I've done that for many years, probably starting about 10 years ago, them coming with me. They're putting their products out there, they're advertising, they have their flyers, they have their brochures, but all of that's on my table. Everybody knows me. I have the network. And so to build my boys' businesses up, it's on my table. So then my clients can trust my son. And then most people know how I am. So they know they're workers because I work hard. So they know that they're going to get a quality product and quality service from them young men. 6 is revenue stream. List your sources of revenue. Where is it coming from? We just talked about funding your business. So all of those things I listed, that can be in number 6. So if it's a FSA loan, if it's a bank loan, credit union loan, if it's a grant, if you establish business, community garden grant, if you're a new and beginning farmer, whatever that money, wherever that personal funds, that needs to be listed in number 6. And then 7 is your cost structure. List your fixed and variable costs. What that means is, if you're paying on a barn, you just built a barn, you just bought a tractor, you have those particular fixed costs. Water bill, some of us, for me, my water bill is fixed. I learned that ain't for everybody, but like that, some costs are fixed where it's the same amount every month. That's what that means. And then your variable cost is when it fluctuates every month. You know the bill is coming, but you don't know what it will be. So those are what goes in number 7. Any of those costs that's above and beyond you. Feed costs, hay costs, all of those types of things, that goes in number 7, things that you're getting on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. And some supplies we buy per year. And then last, number 8 is list the key numbers that tell you how your business is doing. That's your metrics. And metrics is not just your social platforms that people now have learned how to do metrics, but business owners supposed to have been doing metrics regardless. You create your metric system. It don't necessarily have to be something difficult, but you got to figure out what's bringing you your money. So for an example, if I create a flyer and then I start all of a sudden getting a lot of business, boom, then I know it came from the brochure or the flyer, whatever I just created. If I just posted some on Facebook and then all of a sudden I start getting phone calls, okay, then I know, boom, that was the Facebook post I just did. And then of course, I'll tell you how many people looked at it and what they did with that post, but is that post generating dollars? That's what most business owners are not doing. They just want the feedback with their posts, but that's not making no dollar. I'm sorry, that I don't care anything about that. So a lot of people, oh, it got 1,000 likes. You need $1,000 to match the 1,000 likes. Do $1 a like. That's what I'm saying. So you gotta fix your business that way where it really turns over $1. Whatever you do, because you just put forth an effort, you just put time into something. And if you're a business owner, everything you do is money generated. Not saying we're living and everything we do is for money, but you got to be a realist. Time when we are doing something, that is time that we could be doing something else. Me being here right now is taking time from my children, me doing things with them. So that costs people money. So that's how I look at things, and you have to calculate it like that and so forth, because family is first and foremost for me, and anybody taken away from that, I charge. So that's just how I do, because that's my core value. So you all have to decide, what is your core value? What are the things that you will not waver from? And then you put a value to that. So that, I went through it fast. I know I talk really fast, so I apologize. But like Mr. Ross said, we don't want to hold you all forever. So I will stop sharing, and then we can get some questions coming in.
All right, great nuggets there. Thank you so much, Felicia, for this presentation. Please go ahead and put your questions in the chat while they're doing so. I'll let them tee a few up for you. I do want to piggyback on that on number 8, which is tracking your metrics. There's so many of us who do not do that important step. And so we think we know, but we don't really know, because we're not really truly tracking our metrics. So we don't know what works. We got this money coming in, but sometimes you have to build in mechanisms where you're asking your customers, or especially you start developing relationships and say, hey, how did you hear about me? Little stuff like that can make all the difference in what you do. You may find out that, it's one little tweak that you're doing that's getting people in the door. Well, then do more of it, double down on it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm going to let you go ahead and jump into the Q&As. It looks like a few of them came in. Can you see them there? If not, I can read them off for you. I'll read them off for you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I don't see them.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, those were actually old. It says, how can we connect with more lectures? We do plan on, just sharing with everybody, we do plan on doing more of these with both Felicia and Justin in the future. So we're just kind of wetting your whistle here with who they are and what they do. And I can already tell by some of the reactions that you two are well received. So we're going to get together. We're going to do some more kind of breaking down some of these things into more detail for you in upcoming months. So stay tuned for that. Let me check the chat. I thought I saw, I think everybody was just kind of blown away by you. I'm looking at the deal here. I also wanted to point out while I'm looking for some other questions here. Thank you so much for pointing out what you said about grants, and that grants are typically for established businesses. I think there's so much misconception on that, where, if we're not reading the small print, everybody wants to go out and get that grant. Can you kind of hit on that a little bit more?
Yes. Yes, sir. So I get the calls and the questions. New and beginning farmers are thinking, and I don't know where they're getting this from, that is some magical entity that's giving grant funds to start a business. I don't know where that's coming from, and I know Justin gets it as well. I don't know where that's coming from, because all business owners, regardless of the industry you're in, have to start with your own money. It has to start with your own money. Now, it could be inherited money, it could be gifted money, but it has to start from you first. And I just don't understand why people think that we have that ability in America. It's not here. And so it took me years before I can write a proposal and get grant money. And I mean years. And it really was dealing with the food service. It wasn't necessarily the agricultural farm itself. It was when we switched, and not necessarily switch, but when we opened up more our business into other type of industries, is when the grant funding started coming. But what I call the big mama, the RD&S farm, is the oldest of all the businesses of the family businesses. It has its, that concrete in the country that it's been around a long time. We haven't had any bad marks on Duns or anything like that. And so then when we kind of open up to get into the food service, then now they can go and check that, because I fall back on that because we're health and wellness. So they're going to check the RD&S farm, but it's opening up a new business. And so it's still, yes, it's still going to be your own funds. But what Mr. Ross said earlier, I just don't want people to think it has to be a lot of funds. Most people think starting a business takes a lot of money. It does not, especially in the agriculture business. Now, most of us want to start big. That's the problem. We have no knowledge or experience on starting a farm, but we want to start with 20 acres. That's the problem. It's like, can you do a 4x4 raised bed first? Mm-hmm. That is the issue. And most people cannot. They inherited 20 acres, 50 acres, but then they're trying to put something on that. And these people have had land like that for many, many years, and they just still own 5, they still own 10, but they're making all their money with that 5 acres, but they got 45 sitting fallow. So I don't know why new and beginning farmers feel like it's just this big thing, and I'm not a farmer unless I'm, doing 20 acres and I mean have 20 acres in production. And I'm like, no, it don't work like that. You can make a living. It is farmers, and Justin can attest to this. It's market gardeners making a lot of money off of 2 acres, 1 acre. Backyards. It's people making a lot of money off of small land masses. So please don't ever think that you have to be big to start making money. And the only things old people did, they had the land, and some of those lands are mortgaged because, like I said, they're behind their house. Some of them have mortgages and so forth, but they started. And that's where I mean by your funds do not have to be great. All they did was buy seeds. They probably got some friends, someone with a tiller, rented a tiller. It's minimal to start farming. And then you got to attend to it and then you reap that harvest. Literally for us as farmers, you reap the harvest.
All right. So we've got a couple questions in here. One is from Candy. She says, do you have any information on where to get help with grant writing? And Candy, I can, and I'll let you answer this too. I know that we have some relationships, Texas Small Farmers Ranchers, CBO. We're actually written into a few grants for the 2501 that will assist you. So just feel free to reach out to that, but I'll open that up to you as well, Felicia.
I have been sending a lot of our farmers to a grant writer in Atlanta, Miss Lynn, and forgive me, I cannot remember her last name right at this moment, but Miss Lynn have done a project for me in Mississippi. She come to Mississippi and did an in-person event a few years back. And I've been sending her people ever since, and she have had funded projects with them. So I always like sending it to people, that look like us and doing good work and stuff like that. So Ms. Lynn really, and she writes, and she does agriculture grants. Let me just give that disclaimer, because you have grant writers, but you don't always have agriculture grant writers that know the terminology. And she specializes in the value-added producer grant. So that's her wheelhouse. So if any of you all are trying out for that grant, look me up so I can send you to Miss Lynn.
All right, we're gonna do that. So we're gonna post your contact information. Is there any chance, if you get a chance, to do that in the chat? If not, I'll make sure they get that afterwards as well. Excellent question. We have another one here from Tina. It says, currently, I'm a sole proprietor and considering a nonprofit. What are the basics of this type of structure compared to being a sole proprietorship?
My first question always is, why do you want to be a nonprofit? That's something I noticed that over the 20 some odd years, a lot of us we do nonprofits and don't do for-profits. So that's always my first question, why a nonprofit? Because a lot of times people are starting nonprofits basically for the wrong reasons. They got a notion and think they need a nonprofit when they can do the same work on a for-profit. So that would be my first question, really, is it doable for you as a nonprofit? Because it's a lot more paperwork. It's a lot, it's a lot and stuff when most of us don't need that. You can do service in your community on a for-profit. So that would be my first question. And then sole proprietorship now. I personally don't like sole proprietorship, definitely in this day and age, because my dad was that. He was sole proprietor, but I wouldn't do that in this day and age because we have always been a sue-happy country. Anybody can bring up litigations against you no matter what. They can be false or they can be true, but in our country, anyone can bring up a lawsuit against you. And so I just would not do that in this day and age, be a sole proprietor. Because what that means is if they bring you up within a lawsuit, they're not bringing up a business, they're bringing up your name. So Felicia Bell would be on that court document, not RD&S Farm LLC. So they can take anything you own if they win. So that's your house, cars, land, life insurance policies, whatever it takes to pay them what's liable to them, that's what they get. So I wouldn't do sole proprietor. It's too dangerous now.
All right, I'm just checking to see. Some great feedback here. Everybody loves, I'm getting comments that this is great. I hope it's shared with us.
I'm seeing Miss Hicks. You see Miss Hicks, I was like, yes. Please share. Don't ever think I'm like, please share. Look, I'm just taking over Mr. Ross.
Oh no, I love it. I love it. I love your passion, Justin's passion. That's I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why I brought you guys on. So
We gotta share the
yes.
information. Miss Hicks, that cash value life insurance that our community need. It changes the trajectory of our families. So please, 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 anyone, if Miss Hicks is doing that, check her out. I gave Mary Jo Ehrman, and you read her book, learn about the cash value life insurance, and then go to Miss Hicks and write one up. So just learn the concept. Please, please, please don't ever get into anything you don't understand. Don't trust anybody, because this is the livelihood of generations to come. So you need to know exactly what you're doing. So I'm a firm believer we can have many people step up to the plate to say they do it, but we want to make sure that you understand what they're talking to you about. It has to be a conversation. I'm a firm believer it cannot be this. They cannot know more than you if you're the one paying for it. So yes, thank you, Ms. Hicks, for putting that in the chat.
Okay, I think we got one last one, then we're going to wrap it up. It says, what are the best resources to form a LLC? I know you're going to get us some information that I'm going to shoot out to them this week, but can you answer that question? What's the best resources to form a LLC?
Now, what do they mean by resources? I'm not following
Like,
the question.
Tina, are you speaking of things such as SBA? Are you talking about online information to form? How do you form it? I think that's kind of what it, just kind of in general, what would that first step be after you complete your worksheet that you gave us to form that LLC? How would a person go about doing that?
Making sure that it's something conducive for your family. Because you remember, I listed so many other business structures, just making sure it's the right thing for you. Because we're talking about longevity now. The things we do now is for generations to come. So how we set it up now affects them. And so just making sure it's right for your family, first and foremost, doing the research on LLCs and the other business structures. That's the first and foremost. Second thing is going to your state Secretary of State office. That's usually who can help you to get it set up, give you more information about it before you set it up. And so that's going to your state Secretary of State's office website and doing research on your own. Again, reading and learning what it means to be a LLC, because it is requirements to be an LLC. So you need to, again, to make you a legitimate legal business. And so just make sure you read first, research, and make sure it's a viable option for your family.
All right, so we're going to do some great nuggets here tonight. Thank you so much. We hit on two with both, starting off with Justin and finishing up with Felicia. We hit on two very fundamental items, one being soil health and the other one being business design. So great nuggets. We did record. I know there was kind of a trip up there in the middle. I had to switch it over to the cloud, but we still got it. So we're going to get that out to you. Give us a few days to get that packaged up, along with some of the items that both Justin and Felicia shared. We'll make sure we get those over to you. Couple other quick items for those of you who live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We do want to give you a reminder that that there is Fort Oak Cliff does have a farmers market that we are co-sponsoring. It's launching May 7th, and it's going to be the first Saturday of each month. So not only are we encourage you to support that farmers market because it's all about our farmers, our community. But also, if you would like to be a vendor, please feel free to visit that website. You can find it on our website. Let me see if I can post it. Let me see if I can cut and paste something for you here. All right. So I just posted that website in the chat there if anybody wants to attend that. Also, Corey Hicks of Prairie View A&M Extension is holding a free workshop tomorrow at 10 a.m. In addition to that, Small Producers Co-op, Small Producers Initiative is holding a cover crop demonstration this Saturday in San Antonio, starting at 10 a.m. Last but certainly not least, there's going to be a grass-fed beef for some of you cattle ranchers out there who are interested in that, coming up on May 18th through 20th in Fort Worth. So all those items are in our newsletter, so you should have got that today. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, please feel to do so on our website, tsfrcbo.org. Just go to the Farmers Digest section and you'll see each one of those last 3 events set up in the Farmers Digest, and be sure to sign up for the newsletter so you can get this regular information. Last but not least, keep an eye out for our next upcoming event. It's going to be on May 31st, kind of right in line with what we're today's topic. We're going to be talking about farm loans and risk management overview with FSA, Farm Service Agency. So stay tuned for that. And before we depart, one more special thanks to today's panelists, Felicia Bell, Justin Duncan, thanks so much. Also special thanks to our team at Texas Small Farmers and Ranchers, community-based CBO. Until next time, take care. God bless.